Hey everyone, this time on Tim Talks Audio, we go over bus compression. When we talk about bus compression in today's video, what we're actually going to be talking about is your mix bus compression. You can do compression on all of your buses, your drum bus, your guitar bus, your synth bus, your vocal bus. You can do compression across all of those. Today, we're going to be concentrating on your mix bus compression. And what we're going to be doing today is a shootout of some of the most popular bus compressors out there. We're going to be using a number of plugins. So let's dive into the DAW and take a look. Okay, so here we are inside of our session, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different colors. What this is a small section of the song I've been working on, and I did a mix on this, and it's just drums, bass, and 2 guitars. That's all it is right now. But you can use everything that we're about to go over for all of your productions, whether you have vocals or not, whatever style. It's really about using your critical listening. So right now, I'm going to say, put in your headphones or switch to your studio monitors because you're going to want to hear the differences between all of these different plugins. Now let's talk about these plugins. As a control, I just have my mix that I didn't put any bus compression on as this first one in blue. You can see mix, no compression. Then we'll move down to an SSL style compressor. And what we were going with is the Plugin Alliance Townhouse bus compressor. This is really cool. When I want an SSL style compressor, this is what I reach for these days. And as we go through all of these plugins, all of their settings are going to be as close as possible to being the same. So what we're working with is a slow attack, fast release, your typical bus compressor kinds of settings. I'm also doing about a 4:1 ratio on all of the bus compressors, or as close as I can get them to them. And you may notice that on all of my tracks, and I'll get this guy out of the way, there's 2 copies of all of the plugins. The first one, what we're going to be doing is only getting about a dB of compression. We just want that glue that mix bus compression can give you. Then we're going to do it again, and all of the settings are going to be the same, except we're doing more aggressive compression. We're getting about 4 dB of compression, but we're going to start gentle first. So we have our SSL style with the Plugin Alliance Townhouse bus compressor. Then we'll go to the Neve 33609. In this case, we're going to be using the Arturia Comp Diode 609. After that, we're going to be going to the Focusrite Red compressor. This is being brought from Slate Digital and the FBC FG Red. You'll notice with the FG Red, I don't have any of the additional drive going on. This is an option that you get in this compressor, and it gives you some of the character that you would get from the hardware. We're not going to do that this time. We're just listening to the compression and how it affects the overall sound of everything. Moving on from there, we're going to go with a Varimu style compressor, and in this case, we're also sticking with Slate Digital and using the FGMU. After that, we're going to go back to Plugin Alliance to the Shadow Hills compressor. This is a bus compressor, and we are going to be doing a little bit of compression with both the optical and the discrete compressors. And you'll see that represented on the 2 different meters here. This is the optical on the left-hand side, and this is the discrete on the right-hand side. After that, we're going over to something that maybe you haven't used. This is brought to us from Plugin Alliance and Brainworks. So that's the Millennia TwinCom. And then after this, rounding everything out, we're just going to go with kind of a classic that you might not think as a bus compressor, and that's the 1176. In this shootout, we're going to be using the Arturia Comp FET 76, but you can use whatever 1176 style plugin you want. Again, slow attack, fast release. That's what they have across all of them. And across all of these compressors, we're only looking at, right now, 1 dB of gain reduction. Gentle compression. Let's get ready. Put your headphones in or turn on your studio monitors. I'm just going to let this one rip, and you'll hear the changes through all of the different compressors. I'm going to let it go all the way through. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer section, but you'll hear all of the differences. And I'll try and put timestamps down below in case you want to skip forward. So we were clicking through and there were changes between all of the different compressors. If you need to, go back and listen again and pay attention to the lows and the low mids. This is probably where you're going to hear it the easiest, especially if you're not used to listening to compression. But you'll hear the tonal differences between the different compressors. One of the biggest ones that I heard was between the Varemu and the Shadow Hills compressor. There's this nice low mid bump and almost poke that helped bring the bass guitar a bit forward with our glue here that we didn't get with the Varemu. Then when we went to the Millennium, it kind of settled back in again. So that's the kind of things that you should go listen to. Where now we're going to go into more aggressive compression. I'm just going to select all of my channels here, put all of the 1 dB compression into bypass or just deactivate them, and turn on all of my heavier compressors. You'll notice with all of these, everything is the same. The only thing that is different is the amount of compression. We're shooting for around 4 dB per compressor. We're going to do the same exact playthrough, but now we're getting more aggressive compression. So if you didn't hear it with the 1 dB, you'll probably hear more of those differences now in the 4 dB gain reduction shootout. Let's start over. We're going to start with the no bus compression and go all the way through all of our different compressors, starting with the Townhouse. I'm going to leave it open so we can watch when it kicks in. What'd you think there? You could really hear the differences between all of these different bus compressors. And I think most jarring of all was the Millennium, the twin comp. There is so much pumping happening with this compressor, and all we did was change the amount of compression. This one in particular as well has a variable attack time, so I got it as close to that same slowish kind of attack, because if I went all the way up to 100 milliseconds, that actually would have been much slower than some of the other compressors we did. So I averaged it and got it pretty close. It's about 40 milliseconds right now for the attack time. I also went ahead and volume matched everything, so you're not getting this overall bump in volume to make you think like, well, that one sounds better because it's louder. We don't want to trick our ears. We want to listen to the characteristics of these different compressors. Before I go into my favorites, I'm curious, what are some of your favorites for this style and these compressors? Yes, they all have their uses, but this is the example we're going with. So which one was your favorite? Did you like the SSL, the Neve, the Shadow Hills, maybe the Varemu, maybe the Millennium at 1 dB? Tell me in the comments below which ones you liked, either with the gentle compression or aggressive compression. Now, for me, if we're talking strictly gentle compression, I kind of like what the SSL style townhouse compressor was doing. It's something I'm very used to hearing. I use SSL style compression a lot. And it's something that I know. I know the characteristics and I know how it should sound. And this sounds really good, especially when it's gentle. It's not doing a lot. It's imparting just a little bit of saturation and harmonics and some of the grit that you would get from a VCA compressor, kind of like this. I also really like the red compressor, both in the gentle and the aggressive. But what I like to do with the Focusrite style is actually drive the compressor as well to impart just a little bit more color. And it's something we didn't do in these tests, but you can experiment in your own productions as well. When we got to the aggressive, the 33609 sounded real good for this mix, and I liked it a lot. And there was something really snappy that was happening with the shadow hills. The shadow hills on this bus compression, when we were aggressive, really brought the transients out, but it almost squashed it too much. It brought the transients forward, but everything else felt real flat to me. So I'd have to adjust the settings and maybe just use this as a drum bus compressor and then pair it up with the 33609 on my overall bus. This is the great thing about using digital plugins is you're almost limitless. It's really just based on what your computer can handle. Especially with compression, it doesn't use a lot of compute power. So you can kind of stack your compressors, and that's cool. 1176s as the mix bus, it got the job done. Not really my favorite. It has other uses, and there's always, I'm sure you've seen a million uses for 1176, but for me, this didn't do it right now. The Millennium was nice on the gentle. It was crazy pumping happening on the aggressive, so I definitely wouldn't do that. But it also, I heard it and what it was supposed to be doing as a compressor. And so it's opening up my ears for other uses for this compressor. Maybe not on the mix bus, but I could definitely use it on like a vocal bus or a background vocal bus and do some compression there. And then, of course, dial in the settings so that it doesn't sound as pumpy. And then the Varimu compressor, overall, it had this nice upper mid excitement going on. And that's really because of just all of the tubes that would have been in the hardware units. This is kind of based off of like the Fairchild 670, which was the stereo version of the 660, and other variable compressors that are out there that are kind of tube based. They add that extra harmonics and the top end. So it gave this nice presence. But for me, it almost gave too much that it threw the balance off a little. So I would use this sparingly, probably in the gentle settings. And what you can do with something like this is actually drive the input to get more saturation and just bring the makeup gain or the output down. And you don't have to do any compression with this at all. If you just want saturation, turn your threshold all the way down and just drive the input and take the output down, and you'll get some real nice tube saturation. Do I have a favorite out of all of these? Not really, but experiments like this help open our ears to how these compressors sound and what their strong suits are and what we sacrifice in order to get the sound that that compressor adds. Maybe it's flattening out the rest of your sounds. Maybe it's adding some extra saturation. They all have different characteristics, and an exercise like this helps train our ears so that when we're making these decisions, we can go, this would be perfect for this kind of compressor, or this would be really well suited for something like this. That's all for now. If you found anything informative, please like and share the video. For booking or lesson information, check out timflansbaum.com. And if you have a question, ask it in the comments and I'll answer it in a future video. Thanks for watching.